Hi, Heart Room friends. Happy Tuesday. We're reading the BFG by Roald Dahl. We're on page 57. If you have your own copy and you want to follow along, we're about 2 paragraphs down. And if you remember from yesterday, we have the BFG, and he has met up with the blood bottler. Let's see what happens. The BFG had intended to whisk Sophie off the table as soon as he got the chance and hide her behind his back, but now there was no hope of doing this. Sophie peered around the chewed-off end of the enormous snozcumber, watching the two giants as they moved away down the cave. The blood bottler was a gruesome sight. His skin was reddish-brown. There was black hair sprouting on his chest and arms and on his stomach. The hair on his head was long and dark and tangled. His foul face was round and squashy-looking. His eyes were tiny black holes, and the nose was small and flat, but the mouth was huge. It spread right across the face, almost ear to ear, and it had lips that were like two giant purple frankfurters lying one on top of the other. Craggy yellow teeth stuck out between the two purple frankfurter lips, and rivers of spit ran down over his chin. Sounds delightful. It was not in the least difficult to believe that this ghastly brute ate men, women, and children every night. The blood bottler, still holding the BFG by the arm, was examining the rows and rows of bottles. You and your pibbling bottles, he shouted. What is you putting in them? Nothing that would interest you, the BFG answered. You is only interested in guzzling human beings, and you is dotty as a dog swaddler, cried the blood bottler. Soon the blood bottler would be coming back, Sophie told herself, and he was bound to search the tabletop. But she couldn't possibly jump off the table. It was 12 feet high. She'd break a leg. The snozcumber, although it was as thick as a perambulator, remember, a perambulator is a stroller, was not going to hide her if the blood bottler picked it up. She examined the chewed off end. It had large seeds in the middle, each one as big as a melon. They were embedded in soft, slimy stuff. Taking care to stay out of sight, Sophie reached forward and scooped away half a dozen of the seeds. This left a hole in the middle of the snozcumber, large enough for her to crouch in, so long as she rolled herself up into a ball. She crawled into it. It was wet and slimy hiding place, but what did it matter if it was going to save her from being eaten? The blood bottler and the BFG were coming back toward the table now. The BFG was nearly fainting with fear. Any moment, he was telling himself, Sophie would be discovered and eaten. Suddenly, the blood bottler grabbed the half-eaten snozcumber. The BFG stared at the bare table. Sophie, where is you? He thought desperately. You cannot possibly be jump-belling off that high table, so where is you hiding, Sophie? So this is the filthsome, rotsome glubbage you is eating, boomed the blood bottler, holding up the partly eaten snozcumber. You must be cockles to be guzzling such rubbed squash. For a moment the blood bottler seemed to have forgotten about his search for Sophie. The BFG decided to lead him further off the track. That's the scrumdiddlyumptious snozcumber, he said. I is guzzling it gleefully every night and day. Is you ever trying a snozcumber, blood bottler? Human beans is juicier, the blood bottler said. You is talking rummy top, the BFG said, growing braver by the second. He was thinking that if only he could get the blood bottler to take one bite of the repulsive vegetable, the sheer foulness of its flavor would send him bellowing out of the cave. I is happy to let you sample it, the BFG went on, but please, when you see how truly glumptious it is, do not be guzzling the whole thing. Leave me a little snitchet for my supper. The blood bottler stared suspiciously with small piggy eyes at the snozcumber. Sophie, crouching inside the chewed-off end, began to tremble all over. You was not switch-fiddling me, as you said, the blood bottler. Never, cried the BFG passionately. Take a bite, and I am positive you will be shouting out, oh, how scrumdiddlyumptious this wonder veg is. The BFG could see the greedy blood bottler's mouth beginning to water more than ever at the prospect of extra food. Vegetables is very good for you, he went on. It's not healthsome always to be eating meaty things. Just this once, the blood bottler said, I is going to taste these rotsome eats of yours, but I is warning you that if it is filthsome, I is smashing it all over your sludgy little head. He picked up the snozcumber. Blood bottler said, I is very fond indeed of English school chidlers. Oh wait, oops, we skipped a page. He picked up the snozzcumber. He began raising it on its long journey to his mouth, some 50 feet in the air. Sophie wanted to scream, "Don't!" But that would have been an even more certain death. Crouching among the slimy seeds, she felt herself being lifted up, up, up. Suddenly, there was a crunch as the blood bottler bit a huge chunk off the end. Sophie saw his yellow teeth clamping together a few inches from her head. Then there was utter darkness. She was in his mouth. She caught a whiff of his evil-smelling breath. It stank of bad meat. She waited for the teeth to go crunch once more. She prayed that she would be killed quickly. "Eat!" roared the blood bottler. "Ugh! Ugh!" And then he spat, and all of the great lumps of snozzcumber that were in his mouth, as well as Sophie herself, went shooting out across the cave. If Sophie had struck the stony wall of the cave, she most certainly would have been killed, but instead she hit the soft folds of the BFG's black cloak hanging against the wall. She dropped to the ground half stunned. She crawled under the hem of the cloak, and there she crouched. "You little swine bugler!" roared the blood bottler. "You little pig swiller!" He rushed at the BFG and smashed what was left of the snozzcumber over his head. Fragments of the filthy vegetable splashed all over the cave. "You is not loving it?" the BFG asked innocently, rubbing his head. "Loving it!" yelled the blood bottler. "That is the most disgustorous taste that is ever touching my mouth. You must be Buggles to be swallowing sludge like that. Every night you could be galloping off, happy as a hamburger, and gobbling juicy human beans." And there you can see the blood bottler. And he's spitting out the snozzcumber, and who is in the middle of the snozzcumber, flying through the air? Well, we'll pause there, friends, and we'll get to see if Sophie survives the rest of her encounter with the blood bottler. See you Friday.